Great move to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, coming to you from the studio. They provide for us as well, which is unbelievable, second to none. And our very special guest is second to none as well. And it is Mike Potts. Mike Potts organizes, coordinates, basically is the leader of scouting, personnel, all of that phase of the Cincinnati Bengals. And he does a phenomenal job. He's got a great crew of people. It's not the biggest department in the National Football League compared to others, but it might be the most efficient and productive in the National Football League in comparison to others. It's everybody knows what they're doing. And Mike talks about what they did in terms of getting ready for the college draft on a 365-day-a-year basis, college free agency, unrestricted free agency, the second dip of unrestricted free agency. It's all there. Mike Potts and his people do as good a job as anybody in the National Football League. You're going to like listening to Mike Potts. We know there's a lot of things you could be doing with your time. There's no question about it. So we do appreciate you joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, coming to you from the studios they provide for us, which are second to none, as we say, one of one. And once again, our guest is one of one. And this gentleman knows his stuff. There's no question about it. Director of Scouting, Director of Player Personnel, many titles, extraordinary. He's a football guy, played the game, sees the game at a very high level, and he does a great job providing guidance in the personnel area with the Cincinnati Bengals, none other than Mike Potts. Mike, appreciate your time, sir.
Appreciate you having me, Lap. Always good talking with you. Excited to get through the draft here and, move on to these next phases of the offseason, calendar here.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess first of all is people don't realize. I don't think that you guys literally, I mean, the personnel, the scouting department, you guys are 365. I mean, you might get a little bit of vacation, but not very many days. It is amazing how there's something that needs to be done on a year-round basis for you and your people, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. It is pretty much 365. I would say the quietest time is probably after that veteran mini camp in mid-June. So towards the late June to early July is probably the quietest time on the calendar. But I would say the other 11 months out of the year is pretty much full go. And there's something that could come up, pretty much any day on the calendar, and we just have to be ready to adjust.
So take us through I guess the calendar, and I don't know where to start it and where to end it. I guess in terms of what goes on in the National Football League, but I guess from just an overall standpoint, you guys are on the road a lot of frequent flyer miles, a lot of time spent away from family, a lot of sacrifices in that area for wife and children, yourself. I mean, it's tough. There's a grind to it. There's no doubt about that. When you have watched these college players in their entire college football season, and not just their senior year. I mean, some guys are out long before their senior year, obviously, and the game is so different now with the money that changes hands and everything else, NIL, all that. But when you're watching a guy, you identify a guy very young. You identify him maybe his freshman year. Maybe the contact that you have says, you know what? Take a look at this kid in our area, this senior in high school. This guy's one of the best players I've ever seen at the high school level. Keep an eye on him, see where he goes to college. You get tips like that with players that early, or is that rare?
We do. I mean, we track these guys all the way back to their high school recruiting process, just in terms of their pedigree and the talent level and how highly they were thought of coming out. I think our scouts do a great job of that. They obviously can't be eligible for the NFL draft until they're 3 years removed from high school, but we're monitoring those guys throughout their whole college career. And like I said, sometimes guys fall through the cracks throughout their college career in terms of the transfer portal. Sometimes there's injuries, sometimes there's personal issues that players have to work through. So we do like to dive back into their pedigree and how they came into college in terms of what level of recruit they were. And sometimes you can end up finding guys that slipped through the cracks and maybe had a little bit of a college career that was unexpected. So we are tracking those guys from a very early age, and it's a lot of there's a lot of different factors and a lot of different people that we have to talk to get the full picture on all of these prospects.
Yeah, it's incredible because I remember even back in the day, getting recruited and everything, and this guy he's a big time recruit, and he'd go to a particular school and kind of peter out. It was maybe the schematic didn't fit his skill set the best or whatever. That was a bad decision made there. I think college coaches do a better job of making sure that they're recruiting guys that do fit their schematic and not just, this guy, look at the raw boned athlete that this guy is, he can do anything. Sometimes that's not the case, but it is. I mean, the human element of it. Sometimes guys, mature young and peter out. Other guys are late in the maturation process and become, they keep building, become the big time stars. How do you say, okay, well, this 5-star recruit, he's tapped out. This 3-star recruit, he's got meat on the bone, man. This guy could really be something. How do you go about making decisions on that kind of thing?
You have to look at their talent level, their upside, what they've been exposed to. I mean, you look at even one of the best players in the league that we have on our team, Joe Burrow. If it wasn't for the opportunity that he was given at LSU, you never know how his career may have panned out. He was not a huge 5-star recruit, but he was a pretty solid recruit coming out of high school. Obviously, ended up at Ohio State. And there's just a lot of different factors and a lot of different situations that these guys can end up in. A lot of circumstances that can happen to them within the game of football or outside of the game of football. So there's a lot of different things that you have to value, weighing their scheme that they've been in, as well as their talent level and their makeup as well in terms of that projection element.
You guys do an amazing job for the Bengals organization, you and your group. And I know it's all about relationships, and you guys have built very strong relationships. You've been together for a number of years, and you've been out to these various college programs, representing the Cincinnati Bengals for a bunch of years. So with that time and due diligence and everything that you guys have done, I'm sure there's some credibility that has been built, some trust, some respect, all of those kind of things. Do you feel like you've really built some strong relationships at schools, maybe even some schools more so than others with what you've done and with what your cohorts have done?
I do think so. As you know, we have a smaller staff, but our staff is very experienced, and we're not like some of these other teams that send 3, 4, 5, 6 scouts through a school. There's only 2 or 3 of us that will go through the average school. A lot of times it's multiple times, but I think when the sources, the coaches, the staff members at these universities see us come through, I do think when we're wearing that Bengals logo, I do think it brings some respect. I do think they recognize us and know the credibility that we have. So I'm proud of our staff. I think we've got guys that are really experienced and really good at what they do. And yes, they do have very good sources at the schools. For as long as our guys have been doing it and going through these schools, they've got sources pretty much everywhere across the country. And it's not just the transfer portal with players switching schools. There's coaches that bounce around left and right, as you know, Lap. And there may be a guy that I see down in the Southeast one year, and then I see him out on the West Coast the next year at another school. So our list of contacts is constantly growing, and we're building that up year by year.
So when do you get a tip or a heads up from somebody at a school or an organization, whatever, that says, hey, boy, coming out of high school, this kid, okay, let's take Shemar Stewart, for example. When did you guys get a heads up on Shemar Stewart. Did you realize that he was a unique physical talent? I mean, the guy is a genetic freak. There's no question. Was he that way coming out of high school? I know he played basketball. I mean, 40-inch vertical, 4.59 40. 10 foot 11-inch broad. It's ridiculous the stuff that this guy can do. When did you get a heads up on a prospect like Shemar Stewart?
Yeah, a guy like Shemar, a lot of the times, coaches at his school will tip you off his freshman year or his sophomore year. I remember, early in his career, some of their coaches there telling me to look at him. Not that he's a guy that you would not spot, and pick out of the lineup in terms of
Right.
his body type. So a guy like him is pretty easy in terms of when you're going out there at practice. A lot of times you'll ask a guy, hey, who's that guy over there, number whatever jersey number he's wearing. And then they'll fill you in. And it goes back to what you're saying about having good sources and good trusted contacts at schools that, will shoot you straight and give you good information. So that happens all the time. And like you said, you're constantly just building up that dialogue with the sources at the school and then building up the profile on guys, even though they may not technically be eligible for the draft that year. That there are guys to keep an eye on in the future.
When I watch tape on Shemar Stewart, it's like this guy, I guess the word that I would use for him is disruptor. And there's not a statistical category necessarily for disruptions. Maybe, pressures, I guess those disruptions, somebody else finishes it with a sack, a tackle for loss, potentially. There's not like a disruption that caused a tackle for loss that somebody else benefited by. And I see a lot of that. I mean, Shemar Stewart was disruptive, man. I mean, this guy was always the first guy to the quarterback. Maybe he didn't finish, and that's everybody, 39 pressures, a sack and a half. But he's so unique athletically. He got close enough to get a pressure where other guys wouldn't. I mean, it's like all that stuff's subjective in my mind. All I look at when I see tape is that dude, they tried to double team him. Couldn't. Triple team him. He's still causing disruption. I mean, I guess, again, when I look at him, that's what I see, disruption.
Yeah, I think, like I said, when I'm talking about his body type and seeing him at practice, it's hard not to notice a guy like that. It's hard not to notice when you flip on the tape and the effort and the disruptiveness and the violence that you mentioned, that shows up all over his tape. So, yeah, obviously everybody knows it didn't show up in the stat sheet in terms of the sack column. You would love that number to be higher than it was. And, like I've said previously, that this is a guy that our coaches really want to work with, and they've got a plan in place to develop and try to get that sack number up. But he definitely shows up in terms of production in other areas. You're definitely right in terms of that disruption, the hurries, the pressures, the quarterback hits, the TFLs. He's all over the place with his effort and his athleticism, and it shows up on the tape. And we think his upside is through the roof, and I can't wait to see what he's going to end up being for us.
Another thing about him when you look at him, the run game. I mean, knockback. We used to, who's going to knock Hank Bullock? I want some knockbacks out of his defensive lineman. He wanted the defensive lineman to get underneath the pads and knock the offensive lineman backwards. Tiger Johnson, I want knockbacks. I want you displacing that defensive lineman. This guy, I mean, that's another category. Disruptions, knockback. I guess they go in the same, it's probably in the same column, maybe A and B. But man, I don't see him getting knocked back. I see him knocking people back. I see him controlling his part of the line of scrimmage. And I don't care if he's single block, double block. So he is knocking people back. That part of it jumps out at me as well.
He definitely does. And it goes back to that play strength and that violence that he plays with. He has heavy hands. He can really indent the line of scrimmage there on the edge and knock back the tackle or the tight end or whatever opponent he's lined up against. So that really shows up in his tape. We think he can be an outstanding edge setter. He's displayed that in his college on his college film, and we think he can continue to do that at the NFL level. And like you said, he's got outstanding speed and athletic traits to run down ball carriers in the run game. So he's gonna continue to develop, and I think just get better and better in that aspect of his game.
I know there's all kinds of things that the draft gurus, do after, they do boom or bust or all that thing, all that kind of thing. My thing is, what kind of upside potential does a draft pick have? And I look at your draft picks. I mean, there's upside potential for all of them, and there's tremendous upside potential for Shemar Stewart. I mean, I don't think it's like, oh man, the meat's almost off the bone. There's not much meat there. There's a lot of meat on the bone for that dude.
Absolutely. I would say you could argue that he's got as much upside as anybody in the draft.
Yep.
And do you want him to have more production in certain areas? Yeah, you certainly do. But I do think his floor is relatively high as well. So I don't think he's a complete boom or bust type of guy, but certainly the upside is there for sure. If you're talking about swinging for the fences, for a guy that can be towards the top of the league, he definitely has that potential. Now, is he there right now? No, he's not. He's got to come in. He's got to do it. He's got to work at it. He's got to develop in a lot of different areas with our coaches, but we think he's got the right type of mindset and makeup to come in and put that work in to get where he needs to be.
Okay, so let's talk about your second round pick, Demetrius Knight, 6'2", probably what, at least 230, maybe a little over 230 pounds. He's got some long arms, played the quarterback position in high school. I mean, in college, he's got athletic ability. When I look at him, I see a guy that sees the field. His play recognition is very, very quick. He gets his teammates lined up properly. He makes the necessary adjustments if they need to realign. I think this guy has a lot of tangibles and intangibles. I think he's a pretty good prospect. What do you think?
Yeah, he's really talented. He's got the exact type of makeup that you want. Like you said, he can get off the spot, and his speed, his explosiveness, his length shows up all over his tape. He's heavy and strong on contact as a tackler and taking on blockers to stack and shed and find the ball carrier. So we think his upside is through the roof, and for sure, I know a lot has been made out of his age. He is an older guy that took a different path maybe than some of these other guys, kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of the path that some of these guys take throughout their college career. But we do think he is a guy with a lot of upside. Like you said, I think you can say that about every draft pick that we made. These guys have upside to continue to get better, and they are good players as they are right now entering the league. But we think they can continue to develop and get in a spot where they can be impact guys for us.
It's interesting. 25 years old, like you mentioned, married with 2 children. I think like I don't know, 6-month-old or a 9-month-old and a 5-year-old, something like that. And I remember Paul Brown saying, I like young players that are married with a family. I know they have a sense of responsibility. I know they're playing the game not just for themselves. They've got other people that they need to take care of. And he looked at that as a very big positive. He looked at it as something that would help prevent a player from, as he talked about it, wandering, going somewhere he shouldn't go after the time of night that he shouldn't be doing either. Paul Brown was in favor of guys that had either married or married with children, had that type of responsibility. I look at it as a plus. I mean, I think that this guy's going to. I think that makes him probably the leader that he is too. I mean, the guy's accountable, reliable, dependable, responsible. Those are all things that make a good leader, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think he leads by example and vocally. He does everything right on and off the field. So that's the type of guy that you want to bring into the locker room. He's the type of guy that sets a standard for you and does everything the right way. So I think Paul Brown is right in his line of thinking, as he is with most things that I've heard for sure.
Right.
You would obviously know better than I would, but the guy's for sure a football genius and a pioneer of the game. So I think he's spot on in terms of, in this case with Demetrius. I think it is a plus in terms of the stability that he has off the field. Like you mentioned, the purpose that he has off the field in terms of motivation and drive to support his family. And he's going to come in as a mature guy who we think can make a great impact, not only on the field, but in our locker room as well, in terms of immediately coming in as a rookie.
Okay, let's talk about your third round pick, Dylan Fairchild, one of my favorites. I think this guy, I think he's got a bright future. We were just talking to Scott Peters here a little bit ago, and to me, the thing that stands out most about Fairchild, every single day when he went to practice, it was the SEC, best conference in the land, Georgia, the best team in the best conference in the land, with defensive linemen too deep at every position that were the best in the land, going against those guys. Iron sharpens iron. I talked about going against Mike Reed when I was a rookie, and that was an eye opener. I mean, he made me better. The guy was like a freak, athletic freak, with his first step quickness, his overall quickness, explosiveness. When you're going against high level people in practice every single day, it makes you a better football player, right?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And we ask every single player that we interview who the best player is that they've went up against and the best teammate that they would bring
Huh.
with them if they could choose one to be an NFL teammate. And a lot of these guys that come from programs like Georgia, some of their best competition is in practice. When he's going up against the Jalen Carters of the world, who's one of the best young defensive tackles in the league, day to day in practice, like you said, iron sharpens iron, and that just makes you a lot better. A lot of the defensive linemen that we interviewed from Georgia, Amarius Mims was the best guy that they ever went up against in their college career, and that's in practice. Now, obviously, we want to get some other answers, in terms of guys that they've went up against opponent wise, but you're 100% right. When those guys are battle tested like that, not only in their SEC conference games, playing against some of the best competition in the country on game day on Saturday in college, but then they're also doing it Monday through Friday during the week in practice. Those guys are definitely battle tested, and they're ready. They're as ready as anybody in terms of the competition that they've faced once they get to the NFL.
When you're looking at a guy, a prospect, how much does the fact that he might have excelled in additional sports, like Fairchild was a dominant wrestler, undefeated junior and senior year in high school, and the balance that comes with that, the knee flexibility, the overall flexibility, able to lower himself without bending at the waist, setting a stout base that hard to get off balance. Talked about earlier, Crumry. I mentioned practicing against him. I mean, I couldn't get the guy off balance. I mean, a guy that was a great wrestler, a guy that was a very talented basketball player. Like we all already mentioned, Stewart, 40-inch vertical jump with that type of body. I mean, that's freaky to see a guy on a basketball court doing that kind of stuff. I mean, all the guys that you have selected, I mean, some of them competed in track and field. I mean, do you look at that? Is that a plus? Is it something like, oh, that's okay, or it's not, or you're not saying, oh, we're not drafting a guy if he doesn't play multiple sports, but if he does play another sport and excels at it, that's a plus for the guy.
Absolutely. That's something, to answer your question, that we look at on every single player that we scout. We build up their profile in our scouting report, and it kind of goes back to one of your earlier questions about their high school background. We look at every single guy, what sports they played, what their background was throughout the early part of their life into high school, college, and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, whether it's a DB or a receiver that has an outfielder background in baseball, like you mentioned with Dylan Fairchild with the wrestling, I think that shows up on his tape in terms of his strain, his finish, his flexibility, his ability to get in and out of different body positions. Like you mentioned with Shemar with the vertical, and different sport backgrounds kind of helps these guys instinctively as well. So it's always something good to know. And again, that's not to say that we would eliminate a guy that only played football his whole life and no other sports, but it's definitely an important part of our process in terms of building the overall profile on a player.
Barrett Carter, you look at this guy, 6'1", 230 pounds, unquestioned leader. I mean, it seems like played at a school like Clemson, They got a great program. That program, you know, he's got it going. I mean, he's got something special going on down there. And it's very sophisticated in their defense. Their pass coverages seem to have sophistication to it. And they looked at this young man as a guy that sorted it all out, make sure that his teammates were lined up properly, doing the right things. He seems to be not only physically gifted, but in terms of the intangibles, gifted as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Another high character guy that has the makeup that you want. He's a guy that we've been looking at for several years. He could have came out in the draft last year, chose to go back to Clemson for another year. And I think he had a really good career there. He's a guy that's athletic, like you said. He even played some nickel early in his career, so I think playing in space and coverage and moving around just athletically is really natural for him in terms of the spatial awareness element of it, and the instincts and the vision. So he's a guy that we're really excited about his upside and adding to that linebacker room, and we'll see, you know, where it shakes out in that room. But we've definitely added a lot of competition to the linebacker depth, and you know, we'll see how it shakes out here over the offseason and into training camp. And like as you know, injuries are a part of the game, so you can't have enough good depth at any spot on the roster, and that's something that we're going to continue to add at every position moving forward.
Let's go to the fifth round, and let's talk about Jalen Rivers. A big dude, man. This guy's long, powerful. He's got really good feet, good hands to go with the length of his arms. I mean, he's a good prospect, guard or tackle, right?
Yeah, he's played both. I know everybody's seen the versatility that he has playing both left guard and left tackle in almost every game this year. So his versatility and ability to seamlessly transition in between positions mid-game like that is really, really impressive, we thought. But he's a guy that we were really happy to get there in the fifth round. I'm excited to see what he can do for us. Will, you know, as you know better than anybody, Lap, you know, it's about getting the best five guys out there. We think he's got versatility, you know, whether he ultimately ends up in a starter role or a backup role on the roster. We think he's a guy that can play multiple spots for us, and adds a lot of competition to that room. So, like you said, long arms, really good feel, really instinctive player. And, you know, there's just a lot of pluses and positives for Jalen Rivers. So we were really excited to add him in the draft.
How big is versatility and having an ability to play multiple positions? I know that's what kept me, you know, in the league for a number of years, being able to play center, both guards, both tackles, positions. You know, I did actually. Fortunate Jim McNally said, "Hey, do it in one game." So I did it in the same game, a couple of games. I mean, that was a unique experience, but it was something I'll never forget. But to have that type of position versatility, it seems like you've addressed that with a lot of your picks. I mean, they're not just locked in on one. They can do a lot of things for the football team.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You only get so many guys that are active on game day. You obviously want to have some versatility even in your practice squad guys in terms of the standard elevations or adding those guys to the game day active. So the more versatility you have, the better on your roster. Whether that's an offensive lineman, a defensive back, whatever the position may be, you got to be able to perform multiple roles because you never know how the roster is going to look week one compared to week 17 or into the playoffs. And, you know, the more depth and the more versatility you have kind of builds up your roster for the long haul to play deep into January and February, which is our goal.
What about Tahj Brooks? What does Tahj Brooks bring to the table for you guys in the sixth round?
Tahj is another versatile guy who has a really well-rounded game, not only as a ball carrier, but also with his third down value as a receiver and pass protector. You know, you can look at the stat sheet on him in terms of his production. He's as productive as any running back in this draft class. So another guy we were really excited. We wanted to add to the running back room in this draft, and it was a really deep draft. So we felt fortunate that Tahj was there in the sixth round for us, and he's gonna really add a nice element to our running back room.
Yeah, I mean his numbers, what led the nation in rushing. I think the last two seasons rushed for over 3,700 yards and 27 touchdowns. I think it was something crazy. I mean, his numbers were impressive.
Yeah, he was over 1,500 yards each of the last 2 years. So, like you said, a really, really productive guy, and he's got really good hands as well in the pass game. So he's not just solely a ball carrier, and we really like him in pass protection as well. So he's a well-rounded player.
So I know you've got 14 free agents that you've got under contract. Heavy on the offensive side of it. I think it's 9 offensive free agents and 4 on defense, and then one specialist. You've got a long snapper that you like, William Wagner out of Michigan, quite a bit. But let's talk about you addressed the defensive tackle position with a couple of good ones, Howard Cross and Eric Gregory. Talk about those two guys up front.
Yeah, we've agreed to terms verbally with a number of guys there in college free agency. Unfortunately, I can't speak on specifics on those guys
Right.
until a little bit later in the process. We're talking here on Wednesday, and we're going to get the majority of these rookies in here tomorrow on Thursday, and then our rookie mini camp will start on Friday. So we'll hopefully officially have something to announce here on Friday and get all those guys signed up. But I will say, you mentioned some of the guys that they're. I think it's a really good college free agent class that we signed and have agreed to terms with. I should say not officially signed yet, but
Right.
the guys we've agreed to terms with, we're really excited about. I think it's a really good class, and there's some guys that I think can really push for a 53-man roster spot for sure. And then if not that, guys that can really help us on the practice squad. And like I mentioned before, that practice squad has become more and more important with the standard elevations, and we want to build that thing up as good as we can, so we have that depth and guys that can fill the role for us at different parts of the year as needs arise.
So some of the guys that are verbally maybe agreed to terms that I'm looking at the linemen, the 2 interior defensive linemen. I'm looking at Ohio State's Seth McLaughlin. I mean, that guy, highly regarded. Offensive tackle Caleb Etienne from BYU, Eric Miller from Louisville. I mean, coach, all good possibilities. Real quickly, because I know you've been extremely generous with your time, and I know I've abused it as I always do, but I certainly do appreciate having somebody like you talking about what your department has done so exceptionally well. What about unrestricted free agency? You give us a couple of scenarios there that you like a lot.
Yeah, and in terms of the UFAs that we signed, obviously,
Yeah.
you add TJ Slayton to the mix, and
Yep.
add a big nose tackle there, and help out our run defense, and we think he can push the pocket in the pass game as well. So that's something for sure that we wanted to shore up. He's the big one that comes to mind. We did a really good job of bringing back our own guys. Samaje Perine as well as a guy that obviously we have a lot of familiarity with him being with us in the past, and playing some really big roles on our Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
So he was an important piece for us to get back. So, but moving forward, that it's something where we're going to continue to monitor what else is out there in terms of free agents that are still out there on the street. And it's like you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, it's a 365 days a year job, and it's an ongoing process to where we're going to continually look to upgrade our roster. And we're definitely not finished. This is with the roster where it stands right now is definitely not the roster that we're going to go into week 1 with. We're going to continue to look for upgrades and constantly look for ways to get better.
I think interior offensive and defensive line, addressing those which you have in unrestricted free agency in the draft, and now college free agency, and then that second dip of unrestricted free agents, that secondary market. You've done a good job. We talked about the tackles, and a guard, Patrick, that you brought in, almost a decade year player in the National Football League that also gives you position versatility inside. How big of a get was that?
Yeah, Lucas Patrick was a big get for us. Like you mentioned with the versatility, he's played all 3 interior spots. So, you never know how it could shake out. I think he's definitely going to come in and compete for us at guard. And, we'll see how that competition plays out. We'll let the best man win at all of those spots, not just the offensive line, but everywhere. It's going to be It's going to be a competition, and I think our coaches do a great job with that and give guys a good opportunity to earn these roles, and then we'll end up playing the best players. But like you said, the versatility comes into play. If you have injuries and other situations that arise. So Lucas Patrick is a guy that we had a really high regard for, and he's had a really nice career in the places that he's played previous to Cincinnati. So he's a guy that we kind of had a strong liking for in terms of throughout the UFA process, evaluating him. And he's another guy with the right type of makeup and the right type of guy that we wanted to add to our locker room.
And a guy that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, going to LSU, Joe Burrow. Man, I mean, when you got arguably the best in the world at the quarterback position, it's paramount to protect that dude, keep that pocket integrity, and keep that thing solid. Don't let the interior of the pocket. I was always taught, back in the days, Paul Brown, Bill Walsh, Tiger Johnson, the tackles are responsible for the width, the centers and guards are responsible for the depth. Don't let that pocket be pushed back into the quarterback's face. You played the position of quarterback. It's not fun when guys are obstructing your view, and when you follow through, you're worried about hitting their hands and all that kind of. You want space, you want room, you want to be able to operate. And then a guy like Joe Burrow, who can climb the pocket and hurt you that way. But when he's climbing, he's always looking to throw the football. I mean, man, to me, you guys have done a hell of a job of making Cincinnati a destination. Guys want to come to Cincinnati in unrestricted free agency. Guys are excited about being drafted or signed as a college free agent with the Cincinnati Bengals. And a big part of that, is Joe Burrow and the weapons that he's got. And you guys have done a hell of a job building a tremendous roster, Mike. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We've been disappointed, to be honest, in the past couple of years, just missing the playoffs after some success there the 2 years prior to that. So we need to get back in that playoff, and just have a shot at the tournament. And we think we've got as good a chance as any team in the league. But I do think you're right. We've got a really talented roster that is an attractive place that free agents do want to come. We've sensed that love, even from agents and representation for these players that are reaching out to us and think it's a good place for their player to come play, and they like the fit. And a lot of these guys, they just want to win. A lot of, if the money's equal and the contract situation stuff is equal, these guys want to come in and have a chance to win. And we think we can provide that. But like I've said many times, the job is not over. We're going to continue to work and try to upgrade this roster any way we can. The draft was just a mile marker in the off season, but there's constant discussions on ways to upgrade our roster and add to it. So we're going to continue to work through it and try to put the best product out there on the field that we possibly can.
You got a great window of opportunity, Mike, because you guys were very wise in drafting Joe Burrow as the top pick of the draft his year. And then you supplemented it with outstanding receivers, Jamar Chase, top 5 his year, T. Higgins, the first pick of the second round his year, the 33rd pick, and re-up those guys. And to get all 3 of those guys back is incredible. I mean, to get all 3 of those guys back, man, the potency of that offensive unit in the passing attack is second to none in the National Football League. And excited about it, man. You guys have done a tremendous job retaining your own. Don't develop good players and then let others benefit by it by not being able to sign them. Some of these contracts are so crazy. They're backloaded and they got to get rid of people and other people benefit. You guys have done a phenomenal job of building your roster and keeping key players here. And that window looks tremendously promising. You guys have done a hell of a job, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like you said, that's a big part of it as well. The players that we have a high regard for, they want to be here. They want to stay here. They like what we have going here. So it's not just the outside free agents that are attracted to here in our situation and our ability to be a winning team and a winning organization. I think it says a lot about our organization in terms of the players that are here, that are high level producers for us on the field, and they want to continue that career in Cincinnati. And a lot of these guys really like it here and really want to remain Bengals. So that's something that we are proud of. And it's an exciting time to be around here, but like I said, we're just going to continue working through it. I don't think we've arrived by any means, because at the end of the day, we missed the playoffs the last 2 years, and that's very disappointing. So we're going to try to get that bad taste out of our mouth and get back on the right track.
And finally, Mike, the organization, ownership, management, you, the scouting department, personnel department, Zach Taylor and his coaching staff, the coordinators, Dan Pitcher and Al Golden, the rest of the coaching staff. Everybody's done a tremendous job of building a culture, and that's kind of what you're referencing there. The players want to stay and be part of this culture. Other guys around the league are noticing what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing and the culture that they're building. And Cincinnati is a great place to live and raise a family. Got a lot going for it. I'm excited for the next few years, Mike. You got me juiced up, man. It's going to be fun.
We're excited as well. Like I keep saying, we just need to keep adding to it, and we need to keep adding those guys that are the right type of guys that continue to add to our culture. So that's what our plan is, and that's what we're going to set out to do.
Congratulations on a job well done, Mike, to you and everybody that works with you in your division of the organization. And go get them, man. It doesn't start. 2025 is already well underway. I mean, the draft in 2026, you could probably almost pick every first round pick right now, I bet.
We have already started to turn the page, but like you said, there's some loose ends to tie up here with our rookie mini camp coming up here in the next couple of days. So we're a little bit overlapping last year's draft, this past draft, with turning the page on to next year, as well as blending in the free agent and some of the pro scouting stuff. So it's a constant process, and we love what we do, so we'll just keep working through it.
I know you're a busy man, Mike. Your time is much appreciated, sir.
Thanks, Lap. I appreciate it. Always good talking with you.
Same here. Have the best day you ever had.
Thank you.
Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off-season for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham or First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which will continue with exclusive content in the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So please, do me a favor. Subscribe to In the Trenches, hit the like button, and visit the First Star Media Group YouTube channel for exclusive content and special giveaways.